Today we're talking all about this thing. And do you really need a gimbal in 2024? Let's break it down. When I first started shooting video, it was really tricky to get a moving shot. Most of my videos, 99% of them, had completely static shots because every time any bit of movement was introduced, everything would just go to pieces. Then people online started using these, Steadicams. People these days don't realize the struggle that we went through trying to balance one of these things. It was absolutely horrendous. Steadicams were slowly replaced by gimbals, but the dominance of the gimbal seems to be short-lived. Nowadays we have so many options of camera movement. We have phones with great image quality, we've got action cameras with incredible stabilisation, and we even have all-in-one devices like the DJI Pocket 3 that has a gimbal built into the camera. So why would you use one of these, and what niche would it fulfill in your gear arsenal? Let's talk about it. Zhiyun were kind enough to send me the Weebill 3E Cinepeer. I was not paid for this video though, and everything that I say is my true opinion. So I mentioned some of the competition out there, and I'm going to break this down by the devices that I have and what I use them for, and the devices that I've chosen not to buy and why I made that decision. First up, we have action cameras. My camera of choice in this department is the DJI Action 2. This is actually my most used camera ever. I've shot over 500 videos with this thing and I really love it. Things that I think it's good at. It's tiny. This is the smallest camera that I own, and it's the camera that I bring with me when I really don't want to carry anything. It's also waterproof, so if I'm climbing a tricky mountain, I can strap this to myself, and whatever the conditions are, I'm safe in the knowledge that it won't break. The stabilization is also really good, and it's great for getting things like running shots. I take it running with me all the time because I don't want to carry my phone with me. So where does this fall down? Well, although the image quality is great, it's probably a little bit worse than my phone, and it's nowhere near a mirrorless camera. The stabilization also really breaks down when it's in lower light, and not even low light situations, but anything where the shutter speed needs to be quicker than say 1/100th of a second, it seems to really let itself down and you get some terrible shakiness and blurs. It's not the tool if I'm going to be creating a video that I'm going to give to a client, but I use it all the time on this YouTube channel to get some behind the scenes and when I don't want to take a more expensive or heavier camera with me. Next up, we got phones. Phones are getting better all the time. I use this, it's an iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I upgraded specifically because of the video quality on this thing. It shoots log video now and it's getting closer and closer to professional level results. I use this in many videos across my channel to fill in when I don't want to take my mirrorless camera out. Recently, when I was hiking up a particularly steep mountain, it's a little bit much to wield the camera, but my phone's always in my pocket, so I can just whip it out. The build quality is also pretty good. I don't have to worry about it in the same way that I might on some of the other cameras on this list, but where it really shines is the versatility. This thing goes right from a wide-angle lens of about 13mm equivalent on full frame, all the way through to that 5x zoom, which is about 120mm. I don't need to attach anything to it to change that. I just swipe between it in the interface and I can zoom all the way in and all the way out again. I think that if I'm going to have a separate camera or a separate device, it needs to do something much better than this phone. Otherwise, I just don't think it's worth it. The stabilization on this model is also greatly improved. It has something called action mode, which works with the 5x zoom and gives, quite frankly, incredible results, which you wouldn't be able to achieve with many of the other options on this list. I've used it all the time for running videos, and Liz, my partner, who specializes in that type of content, picked up this phone as well after she saw the results. So that's a glowing endorsement from both me and her on phones. But there's a bit of an elephant in the room because there are some other options out there. I mentioned the all-in-one devices like the DJI Pocket 3. This seems to be the internet's favorite camera right now, especially for video and here on YouTube, and I have not bought one. So why is that? Interestingly, I was actually one of the earliest adopters of the Pocket. I bought the Pocket 1 at release, and I thought that this was going to be the future of filmmaking. Now, it was great in certain areas. One thing that it's really good at is a tracking shot. So highlight something on the screen and it can track that and move about with the inbuilt gimbal. But what I found is that that was a very niche feature for it to be part of my arsenal and for me to invest that type of money. If we look at the Pocket 3, I've watched so many videos about it online, all the reviews that you would expect. And despite people really praising the image quality, I don't think that it's any better than my mobile phone. In fact, I would reach for my mobile phone, I would say 10 times out of 10 when it comes to this kind of footage. It's also a little bit inconvenient having to attach different lenses on the front of it, and you're not really gaining anything for it. If I'm going to go and get a specific device with a gimbal integrated into it, it needs to be because it has some kind of benefit that's going to make all of that effort worthwhile. The Pocket 3 for me doesn't tick that box, and so I don't have one. Maybe I will get one further down the line if I can find a great deal on a used one, but it'll be out of curiosity to see whether the video quality really does stack up. It's not something that I'm jumping at. So now we've gone through all of that, we arrive at gimbals. Now you'll notice out of all of the options so far, they have one thing in common. They're all quite convenient, they're all quite compact, but they all lack that professional level image quality that I could give to a client. And that's where this fills that gap. I can mount my mirrorless camera on this, so I know that I'm going to get some excellent image quality, and it really flies around and gives me smooth and stable images that I can deliver in a professional level video. Now, I was an early adopter of gimbals, and I found them a little bit of a pain to shoot with over the years. They can take a little bit of time to get everything balanced up, and my previous one didn't have native vertical mounting, so with the rise of short form video, it became very inconvenient for me to shoot everything horizontally and then crop in. Thankfully for me, Zhiyun sent me their new Weebill 3E Cinepeer, and it solves both of those issues for me. I've never had a gimbal that's so easy to balance, and I'm able to mount my cameras vertically so I can have native vertical video when I shoot with brands who demand both long form and short form content. I'm going to test this thing out, but I've watched a fair few gimbal videos and I have some gripes with the way that people tend to do things. So in this video, what you're going to see is me running at full speed. There's going to be no walking and no slow jogging with someone who's unathletic. We're going to be sprinting around with this thing and checking everything out to see how it performs. I also won't be adding any post-production image stabilization, as that kind of takes away the point of this thing. I will be shooting on the Sony ZV-E1 with a 20mm lens, so nice and wide. I'll be having the steady shot image stabilization turned on enhanced mode in the camera. So let's see how this thing gets on. This is a sped up clip of me balancing my camera on the gimbal vertically for the first ever time, and it took me 2.5 minutes exactly. We then moved on to getting some basic vertical shots. You can see here it was really easy to use. I'm just slowly walking around and building it up. We then tried some jogging, which was also pretty cool. You can see here there's some slight up and down movement, but nothing too major, and I was really impressed by how easy this was to capture. We continued getting many different angles, including some low shots, and I was really impressed across the board. Pretty soon we moved on to a different shoot, and this was a speed session. Right here, Liz is running at 4 minutes and 30 seconds per kilometer. I was running beside her, and you can see some of the shots I was able to get are really impressive.
For an extra 5 miles. I'm gonna turn left here.
First thing that stood out to me is that it was much easier to get this gimbal balanced than I've previously had. I think part of that is just how simplified they've managed the setup now. On my previous one, there were lots of different locks and they were all kind of loose and jangling around. On this, you have no such thing. It's really solid in terms of build quality. The second thing that I noticed is this is so much lighter than my old one, and it's really compact. It really does pack down. So it's easy for me to fit it in my backpack and fold it up after I've done, as well as hold this entire setup in one hand and move it about. You can see I was able to run with this at a significant speed and film Liz while she was doing a speed session. Despite the fact that it's lighter and simpler and cheaper than my previous gimbal that I had, the motors are also much more powerful. You can see that this has no problems maneuvering this camera about and following anyone, and it's really responsive. So I've been really enjoying that. I was really glad Zhiyun reached out. I was thinking of buying a new gimbal just for the vertical mounting, and at £250, this is the one that I was considering. So having this now in my arsenal is really useful for me because it solves many of the issues that I have with other cameras, but gives me those extra options to get that professional level image quality. So let's be honest, do you need a gimbal in 2024? For the vast majority of you, the answer might be no. If you're fine with the image quality that something like your phone will produce, then this might not be the thing to add to your gear list. But if, like me, you're searching for the highest level image quality with something that is smooth and stable, won't break the bank, and is really compact and easy to use, then you can't really go wrong with this.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you might not need one, but if you think you do, then this is probably a pretty good option for you.
If you have any more questions or comments, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always enjoying interacting with you guys, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. I upload every single Sunday at 5 PM, so subscribe so you don't miss any videos, and I'll see you in the next one.